Tony Blewett on Mix 93.8.
Crimson House and Joe Bounce. We've got Christian here from STEYN IP. How you doing, Christian?
Hey, good and you?
Good. Fine. Thank you very much indeed. We're talking intellectual property in the world of music, right?
Yes. More specifically, copyright.
Copyright.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the other day we were talking about, well, a whole bunch of stuff seems to be going on about people stealing other people. There was I know where it started, the riff. Somebody says in
Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin, yes.
Led Zeppelin, the intro to Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
But they won.
Yes, they did.
So give us some examples of stuff that you found out about.
Well, firstly, just a bit of insight to the listeners. Copyright in music is where all of these cases are based on. Now, copyright there's a bundle of rights when it comes to music. Without going into too much details, but there's rights vesting in different sections, like the production, the publishing, the lyrics, the actual melody, all of that. And there's a bundle, and the musician doesn't necessarily own all of the rights. Okay. So that's just a bit of background. And in South Africa, the Copyright Act of South Africa deals with these cases. The difficult thing comes in where the court needs to assess this, and it's not a clear-cut case, both here and overseas. You have to look at the degree of similarity. Now, degree of similarity is that how long is the piece of string? The court needs to apply its mind to find this. And there's other questions to consider, whether the apparent infringer or the guy that copied it or claimed to have been copying the song actually had access to that song. Did he know? Because you can't copy something if you're not aware of what you're copying. It might be incidental. Yeah. So there's a few questions to ask. I just mentioned that so that listeners understand it's a complicated situation, and that's why some cases seem straightforward and some don't.
When do pieces of music or the lyrics when do they go out of copyright? How much protection can you get?
Well, it depends on country to country. In South Africa, it's 50 years after the author's death or after the first publication. Now, that's again, there's creative ways around it to republish it, extends the life of the publication, meaning the recording. So again, it comes to a lot of some work fall into the public domain. And there's a very nice website called Creative Commons. It's an international organization that actually lists what well-known things like literature, like music, has become common knowledge and falls into the public domain. And obviously, if it's in a public domain, copyright, yes, it lapses. And then you can start using it, like the Mozart symphonies and things like that.
Yes.
It's public domain. Nobody... Again, that's a symphony, not specific recordings of the Mozart domain as played by a specific philharmonic orchestra might still have copyright, but the actual symphony itself would not have. So again, here it is a bit complicated. I've got a few well-known examples. If I list all the examples, we're going to sit here quite a while, as I'm sure you can imagine. Okay. You mentioned the Ed Sheeran one, which I'm actually very happy about that, because it's been, especially recently, a lot of baseless claims on copyright, and I'm very glad he actually won that case. And it's just legal fees is 1.1, so you can imagine the cost of fighting these. Wow. So examples: Vanilla Ice and Queen had a case on Ice Ice Baby and Under Pressure. Yeah. Do yourselves a favor, go listen to the bass line. Yeah. It's an exact copy. The court actually found it being an exact copy. The Verve versus Rolling Stones, Bittersweet Symphony and The Last Time. Originally, there was an agreement between the two of them where the Verve could use 5 notes at 50% of the royalties, but they went beyond the 5 notes, and then there was a legal battle and a few things where they were sued. Rolling Stones won, and the result of all these cases was, firstly, Rolling Stones owned the entire rights in Bittersweet Symphony, and then eventually signed it over.
Because they don't need the money.
Yeah, they don't need, and then they signed it over. So it's a very interesting case, that one. Robin Thicke, Pharrell Williams versus Marvin Gaye's estate. Everybody knows that one. Blurred Lines. Biggest payout to date, $5.3 million. That's quite a hefty sum, and on top of that, 50% of future royalties.
Wow!
So that's a nice.
And that was what? Which one was that?
That was the Blurred Lines versus Got to Live It Up That one.
To give it up, yeah.
Yeah, the Pharrell Williams one. Then Dua Lipa and Arctical Sound System. They had a case, it's still ongoing, unfortunately. Levitating is the song by Dua Lipa. Then few more known ones. Led Zeppelin one we spoke about. That's Stairway to Heaven. Now here they focused on the musical motif. So what is musical motif? You look at the cases don't always focus on the same. Some focus on general vibe. Some are exact copies, like the Queen case. But musical motif. Another thing, Lana Del Rey versus Radiohead, that Get Free and Creep, focused on the chord progression.
Okay.
They settled out of court. But interestingly, Radiohead, who sued Lana Del Rey initially, was subsequently sued by somebody saying they stole
Oh my
Creep.
word.
So it's a very, you can see this is crazy. And then
This is how the lawyers make a good living out of this.
the overseas lawyers, South Africa, the musicians don't really have the funds.
Okay.
Where we step in, but
and
and
another
then.
example you mentioned, Daniel Barron.
Yeah,
Talk about that one.
Local artist. So Daniel Barron, very nice guy. I had a pleasure of meeting him a few times. He had a case, or still semi-ongoing case, against David Guetta.
Oh yeah.
And which is, I mean, that's massive. A South African artist going up against
The second
artists
most,
like
most popular
second most played one
in the UK.
in the UK. And that was based on the melody of Barron's "Children of the Sun" song against David Guetta's "Lightheaded."
Okay.
Now I won't go into too much detail on that case because there's still a few things in the air up there,
Right.
but if you listen to that,
Okay.
and again, this is my opinion, I would say there is at least that degree of similarity.
Okay.
And when it goes back to whether Guetta actually had knowledge of Daniel is then a question. But Daniel's song was relatively well known. And the nice thing about the internet is everybody actually has access to all music. So it's a nice argument to make. It's not the same like it's been years ago where you try and
Christian, I'm going to
convince
play
it.
it now, but thank you so much for coming
no worries,
in.
no
Thank you,
worries.
thank you, thank you.
Tony Blewett on Mix 93.8.